You know, there are some things that it just seems like you can't learn until you get older. And so many things that I really wish that I'd known when I was young. And I've heard the lists that some people have made of regrets that they have when they're older, that they didn't take enough risks, or that they didn't balance their personal time with their work. Things like spending more time with loved ones. Now, I agree with all of those, but my list is quite different. And there's some things you might be able to relate to. Let me know in the comments if you do, or if there's something else that you can think of. One thing I wish I'd known a long time ago is that experiences are so much more important than having a lot of stuff. I used to think it was so foolish when people would travel and spend all of their money, and I'd think, after this trip, what do they have? A few souvenirs, and they don't have anything to show for their money? And then I realized that when you travel, when you have experiences, that changes you on the inside, and all the stuff you can buy with your money, well, it just disappears after a while anyway. Another thing I'd wished I'd known a long time ago was that the world doesn't owe me anything just for being alive. I mean, when I was young, early 20s, I was so entitled. I mean, people were nice to me and they did things for me, gave me food and took me places. I just took it for granted that people were being nice to me, right? And paybacks, yeah, it happens. Now I understand. Another thing that I wished I'd known a long time ago is that my fears are usually irrational. And if I really face them and think, what's the worst that could happen? Usually it's not that bad. Now, something that really would have made a big difference to me when I was younger is if I had understood the difference between what is urgent and what is important. Because when you spend all your time taking care of what's urgent, you're just putting out fires, but taking care of what's important that doesn't seem urgent will help you to prevent a lot of those fires. Another thing that I wish I'd known when I was a lot younger is that other people's heads are a pretty bad place for me to put my happiness. Or, in other words, I was so worried about what people thought of me, their opinions of me. And really, it turns out that nobody really cares. I could have just lived my life and enjoyed it. Another thing that I really wish that I'd been thinking about when I was younger is that you've got to record your creativity when you get it. You've got to somehow be able to store those moments that you've made something. I used to write songs, and I wrote some pretty good songs, but now I can only remember 2, 3, 4 of them maybe, and the rest, they're gone. If I only had some way to write them down, write the chords or the melody or whatever. But all that creativity, it's gone. And another thing that I really wished I'd known earlier is I can trust my gut feelings. A lot of the time, even most of the time, gut feelings. It's just like that feeling that you get, that you know something, even though you don't really have a reason, you think, to know it. I come to find out that really that's the way that Holy Spirit communicates with me, that God guides me. And I've learned that ignoring that gut feeling usually had a bad result. And the more I tried following that guidance, the better things come out. Another life lesson. Now, this one was a hard one when I learned it, but I wish I had understood when I was a lot younger that there were people in my life that really did love me. I had such a low self-image, such a negative opinion of myself that I really couldn't believe that somebody actually loved me, and especially relationships that, thanks to social media, which we didn't have back then, I've been able to reconnect with some people and find out that their feelings for me were actually quite different from what I was imagining. And that's something that's hard to learn because now it's too late. And another thing that I really should have figured out earlier in life is that people will let me down. Now, that sounds kind of negative, and I'm usually a pretty optimistic person, but I expected that people would always follow through with what they said. And I know now you can't expect people just to always come through with their commitments. And another thing that I really wish that I'd figured out earlier is that some of my ideas are good. In fact, a lot of them can be good. And it's back to that negative self-image. I just always felt like if I was with a bunch of people and we were trying to figure something out, that somehow if my idea was so different from everybody else's that nobody had thought of it, that automatically meant that it was a bad idea. Come to find out later on in life that sometimes when my idea is something that nobody else has thought of, it ends up being the solution to the problem. Well, I guess that's why we have the saying, older but wiser, right? I don't know about you, but that's part of the reason that I don't really mind being older now, because I've got all those things inside of me now, and I gotta say, it does make life a lot easier. What do you think?